Hey guys, Chauncey Phillips here. Welcome to December 28th DVD update. I talk about all the DVDs and Blu-rays I've gotten over the last 2 weeks or so. Like I always say, if you guys enjoy these updates, definitely give this video a thumbs up, share it around, leave me a comment on what you thought about the titles that I talked about in this update, any titles you suggested I talk about for future updates. I'm also going to put the links below if you guys don't follow me on Instagram and Twitter and all that, so you can follow me on there. I put up pictures on Instagram pretty much like every day, every other day. Now, the first one I got from Universal is Riddick, which is, part 3 of the Pitch Black series. I remember when I first discovered Pitch Black, that was back before, Vin Diesel had a big following. I think it was like one of his earliest films or most known of early films. And when it first came out to theaters, I feel like it was one of those movies that kind of got discovered way more, on the, I think it was actually still VHS when it came out. I think it was 2001. I think they were still VHS then. But I remember, watching on DVD, in the early, only about 2 or 3 years into DVD. And it was one that I really, really liked. I remember watching it a whole lot. And then they made, the Chronicles of Riddick, which kind of went to the PG-13 route. When it came to DVD, they had an unrated version, which was still not, as intense as the other ones. So I was so glad when they made the new one, they went back to making it a total R-rated movie, weren't, trying to cut it down or any of that kind of stuff. And I think that was one of the things that I liked the least about the last film, which I really did like it. But the basic idea, though, is Vin Diesel's character who has the ability to see in the dark. And the first one was him on the planet. Second one was him, in this kind of, I haven't watched the second one in so many years, but it was him kind of in this, kind of world or something like that. I can't remember what he did in the second one. Like I said, I haven't watched that one in such a long time. The first one I watched a million times. But this one is basically him back on a planet, and that's what I liked the best, was when it was him by himself on the planet, sort of stranded out here. The people from the last movie had stranded him out there, and it was him kind of trying to live out there by himself, and he kind of made friends with this animal out there, and that was the stuff I liked the best. It was almost like him and Old Yeller, but it was like kind of this alien dog. That stuff I really liked a lot, but he basically is run out of food, and he needs to get off this planet, so he ends up finding a kind of like a base camp of this planet, which is pretty much abandoned, and sets the alert for people to come and basically capture him and take him back to jail. Which his plan is basically to basically take the ship that they come in on and take it on his own thing and leave him there. I really liked it, though. Like I said, though, the stuff of them when they got there trying to look for him, I didn't love that stuff as much as I really liked the stuff with him. Vin Diesel was what always made these movies, and I think I've heard that they're going to do probably another one of these, which I actually would really like to see. To me, they're my personal favorite of Vin Diesel's movies. And I like the whole vibe. This movie has a real cool look to it. Very highly stylized film. Like I said, too, this is the unrated version, so it's even more intense than the R-rated cut. Has a bunch of different features on here as well. Featurettes and things like that. I would highly recommend this one, especially if you like the first Pitch Black, because it was definitely more in that style. The next one from Fox is Joseph Gordon-Levitt. This is the first film that he's feature that he's directed, and it's Don Juan. And I think this movie kind of had some mixed opinions. I think a lot of people were expecting a little bit more from it than it was, and it is a little bit of a mundane film. It's kind of, repetitive with him doing the same things over and over again. It kind of gets a little bit like there wasn't a whole lot of subject matter to it, but it's basically about Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, who's basically all he really does is, it's his church and his, working out and porn, and that's basically all he does, and picking up women at the club and having one night stands and things like that. But he ends up meeting Scarlett Johansson's character. It's basically about her, finding out about him and his porn addiction, walking in on him while he's looking at porn, and is basically grossed out by it, doesn't want him to do that, and it kind of causes a strain on this relationship. It's kind of about him trying to change and break his habits and things like that. It also has a story, a big aspect about it with Julianne Moore's character, about him at meeting with her. That they don't talk about too much in the trailer. Like I said, though, it's a very mundane, very repetitive film with the same kind of things happening. I enjoyed it, though. I thought it was very well acted. I thought it was well made, but not like an absolute perfect movie. I would definitely, check it out, but it's one of those ones that's definitely one. It's a little bit more of a rental film. Has a making of on here, and then a bunch of featurettes on here as well. Like I said, though, it wasn't a bad movie. I thought it wasn't I kind of just expected a little bit more from it. And the next one from Fox as well is The Family, which is the Robert De Niro and Michelle Pfeiffer film. This is one that I was really looking forward to seeing, but I kind of knew it wasn't going to be outstanding. There have been a lot of kind of movies about this, about people going into the witness protection and kind of having to hide out, and then people coming after them. It's also one of those movies that is like, some of these things that are happening in it, you know, you're kind of watching it, you're like, that's preposterous. It's like some of the most, it's like, wait a minute, that actually happened? Like, one of the things that happens in this movie is so ridiculous. And it kind of was funny, but it was just absolutely ridiculous, the fact that there's any chance in the world that this could have happened. But it's basically about him and his family in witness protection. Robert De Niro was in the mob. The mob is after him because of he was leaving the mob, and they're trying to find him, and he's always moving around his family to different places because he kind of gives himself away, or the mob is on his trail coming after him, and they end up getting to France in this town. They're trying to do everything they can to get it together and hide out there. And, they're kind of, they don't really accept anything. Like, Robert De Niro's causing problems with their maintenance man who works on the water heater. The first day they get there, Michelle Pfeiffer's character blows up the market. It's basically them not being able to get it together and control themselves. And then all about the mob trying to find them, and about them, trying to, Tommy Lee Jones's character is kind of like having to deal with moving them around and saying, you've got to make this place work. And that's pretty much what it is. It was okay. There was some kind of crazy, like, slapsticky kind of stuff, and there's also some kind of like old music that you haven't heard in a while. And the next one from Epic Pictures is Big Ass Spider. Yes, and the movie's pretty much about exactly what the title says, a big ass spider. It's about this exterminator who's, on a case trying to kill this, I think it's like a spider or something like that, ends up getting bit by a brown recluse spider, goes to the hospital to get it treated. When he's there, there's a cadaver that's in the morgue that a giant spider comes out of it, bites somebody, and gets loose in the hospital. It's basically about him being, at the wrong place at the right time to try and, find this thing. At the same time, the government's there coming to, try and find this thing as well, because there's something about this spider that was not meant to, basically the body that they brought in that the spider was inside of was not meant to go to this hospital. It's about the exterminator and a security guard that works at the hospital trying to go around and find this thing while the government doesn't want them to do it. And it's like, let us handle it. What I liked about this movie, though, was it was kind of a more comedic movie. It wasn't afraid to it was sort of more of a spoof of these kind of films. Reminded me of Eight-Legged Freaks. Like, you could have said this was almost like an Eight-Legged Freaks 2 kind of movie, but I almost liked it a little bit better. Like, to me, too, it's one of those movies that has a lot of CGI and those kind of things, but they kind of blended it in there a little bit better compared to some other movies that are like a lot of CGI like this. To me, I thought it was done a lot better, and I think some of it was mixed in with some practical elements. And if you saw the show on Sci-Fi Channel, which I really miss, Monster Man, they showed one of the sequences in this movie with the face melting. So that was, I wish they could have got that episode on this disc, though, but I'm sure it would have been hard to clear it. But I would definitely check this out. Like, if you like big spider movies, you like ones that are way more tongue-in-cheek and much more of a fun time. To me, they even make a joke about one guy's telling like the origin story of it, and they're like falling asleep to it. To me, I like that because they were kind of like, poking fun at those long, drawn-out origin stories. The next one is one from MPI, which I've been interested in seeing. I heard some really bad things about it. It wasn't very good at all, but I liked aspects about it, but I know there's all that rumors, too, that the director even had to shoot some of it in the nude because Lindsay Lohan wouldn't do the nude sex scenes otherwise. At least that's what I've read a lot of places about it. But it's called The Canyons, and it's the directed by the writer of, Taxi Driver and the director of Cat People, and it's basically about kind of like these Hollywood sort of full of themselves kind of Hollywood types, sort of, and Lindsay Lohan is like her boyfriend in the movie, and he's like producing this independent low-budget movie. I wish they would have showed some of the making of that movie, and they didn't really get into that, but the boyfriend kind of has this side business of like filming these kind of adult tapes and of watching Lindsay Lohan doing this character doing these sexual stuff, and it's kind of hardcore aspects of the movie too. But it was basically like that, and then kind of weird stuff going on, and Lindsay Lohan seeing this other guy, and and he's like the guy who's going to be in that film. And I don't know. Here's the best stuff about this movie. Living in California, I go to like Amoeba Records a lot. They filmed some parts of this movie in Amoeba Records, which I thought was pretty cool to see. Amoeba Records in a movie. They kind of filmed in a lot of iconic spots in Hollywood and things like that. So that kind of the ones that you don't always see in movies. You know what I mean? Like kind of like that. That I liked about it. Some of the music was kind of good in it, but as a movie, it just was not great. The next one is another one I've been looking forward to seeing from MPI as well, and this one I liked. It's from the director who did Magic, and I think he did this movie. I think he did Magic, while he was waiting to get funding or something like that to do this one. This is more of his art film. Magic was kind of like that, a little, but this is way more of an art film. And it's Michael Cera and Gaby Hoffmann in The Crystal Fairy and The Magical Cactus, and it's basically about Michael Cera in Chile. And he's pretty much just there on a trip, and you can tell he's just somebody who had the ability to kind of go away for a really long time. He's been there for like weeks and weeks, and kind of like friends that he made out there. And he's pretty much out there just sort of doing drugs with these guys. And he ends up meeting Gaby Hoffmann's character at this bar, and they're all drunk, and he doesn't even remember. He gives her his number, and him and the friends that he has out there are planning to go out to the desert and find this cactus, and basically, like basically trip on the cactus, cook it down, and I guess somehow they make a drug out of it or something like that. So it's pretty much about him and the girl and them going out on this kind of road trip to find this cactus to go out into the desert and experience it. And that's pretty much what the movie's about. I liked it though. I like these kind of weird movies, and it's kind of a weird movie, like not a whole ton of. Stuff happens, but it's more like just kind of experiencing it and the kind of things that they go through. I like this director's style. I think I liked Magic a little bit more, but like I said, that was kind of more of a narrative kind of movie. It still was kind of weird in some of it, but I would definitely recommend checking this out. If you like Michael Cera, I think Michael Cera has really, really been doing some cool kind of indie stuff lately, which I really like. The next one is one that I ended up ordering from the director himself. He's selling it on his eBay. It's Jeff Lieberman, who directed, Squirm and Blue Sunshine and Just Before Dawn. And this is one of the ones that I had I thought I never saw before. Then I was getting like all this deja vu about it. I think I watched it on USA Up All Night, and it was remote control. I would definitely recommend this if you're a fan of like VHS and old school video rentals and things like that. I would definitely check this out. It's basically about this videotape, which is basically controls anyone that watches the tape and makes them kill the person that they're with. It's like a mind control thing, and it's with Kevin Dillon's character, who works in this video store, trying to, put an end to this tape. And there's some great stuff in here with old school video rental places. If you like that kind of stuff and really, really quirky, I absolutely loved it. I think it's probably one of my favorite things that he's done, like the top movie. To me, it was just a really fun, it's one of those kind of movies that they don't make anymore. Kind of had the vibe of Meet the Hollowheads to me. That kind of really, really quirky, odd film, which I like. The next one, I ended up ordering this off from Germany. I think it's going to come out in the UK as well soon, I saw. But this one, I got this because it's region free. And it's Society, the Brian Yunza film. He directed the Reanimator sequels. This is a really, really weird movie about like in Hollywood and about the really rich types that live in mansions, about the ones, this family, and the son doesn't really fit in. And it's something very strange going on with society. And, when you see what it is, it's really peculiar things happening in society. I don't want to go into too many details in this, but if you want a really, really weird movie, you look at the trailer for this one. The next one from Arc Entertainment is Sweetwater, and this I really liked. This is one of those ones when I was watching, I was like really, really surprised with how much I liked this one. It stars Ed Harris, January Jones, Jason Isaacs, who was really cool in this as like the kind of crazy preacher character. And it's basically about this crazy preacher who has, in the beginning of the movie, he ends up seeing these two people on his land who said they're, passing through to come to collect something from the governor of the town, something like that. And he ends up saying, "You're trespassers," ends up killing them. And it's Ed Harris's character coming to the town, trying to find out where they are. And January Jones is a ex-prostitute who's living out with her husband, and she wants nothing to do with this guy's church, and it's basically like this cult. Like, the whole town is pretty much in this church, in this group with this crazy preacher. Kind of has a feel of like in There Will Be Blood, that kind of a preacher, kind of nuts, but he's like really nuts, and that's pretty much what it is. But it's like, he ends up, her husband, January Jones's husband in the movie, goes missing. It's kind of about her trying to do it. It's also an extreme revenge movie. Don't want to get into all the things, but really, really well done female revenge movie. This is one though, like one of my top recommendation ones. Look at the trailer for this one. Like I said, from Arc Entertainment, really. I was one of those movies when I was just kind of almost like clapping with it. Like sometimes there's certain movies that I really, really like. The next one is from the creators of Reno 911. Thomas Lennon was one of the directors, and Robert Grant, who are both of the main characters on, Reno 911. And this is a very quirky kind of spoof movie called Hell Baby. It's kind of like a, Rosemary's Baby kind of spoof, pretty much. Almost like Rosemary's Baby was a comedy kind of a movie. And it's about this couple, Robert Corddry and his wife's character, and they're moving into this house in they're calling it kind of a bad neighborhood that they end up moving into, and there's been a lot of murders in this house. A lot of people have died. There's this one guy who was from the show Key and Peele on Comedy Central, and he's basically just living in the crawl space of the house, kind of popping up at all these weird times. And there was also some kind of funny, scary stuff. It wasn't really creepy or anything, but just really silly stuff, especially with this old person. That stuff I really liked. Also, if you've been to New Orleans, they may have really funny jokes in this about po' boys, and everyone really obsessed with them, and when they're eating them, there's these crazy scenes of it. I don't know, I just had a really fun time with this movie. It's a really quirky movie in that the Reno 911 guys are in it as basically priests that are always smoking cigarettes, and kind of like them trying to come, to look at what's going on. The one woman who's in the house is pregnant, and then, is she pregnant with the devil's baby? And it's just a really silly spoof movie. It's got a bunch of features on here too, a bunch of deleted scenes and bloopers. I would check this out though. The next one, is ones a lot of people I'm sure have heard of this one, and it's from Anchor Bay, and it's, Lee Daniels, the butler. I know there was a whole lot of talk about, the title and making sure Lee Daniels' name was on it. I think originally it didn't say that, something like that. I remember there was a lot of controversy about that. But it's basically about the character of, Forrest Whitaker, who it kind of shows his early life and how he ended up getting to be a butler in the White House during the time of racial prejudices and all that kind of stuff, segregation, all that kind of stuff going on. And it's basically about him kind of showing the things that he experienced through all the years in the White House, and the people and all the presidents and things like that. Oprah Winfrey plays his wife in the film. I thought it was one of those movies that was very well acted, very well done, but I thought there was a lot of, it was almost reminded me of with a lot of horror films where they have very quick cameos. And this movie was kind of like that, where they would have really big name people like Robin Williams and things like that in scenes that were 20, 30 seconds or a minute long. That was the only thing about it that was kind of I wish there were certain things that they would kind of show more with certain characters, and they kind of didn't. And the biggest aspect of this movie is, the side story, which is a big part of it, is his son's character, who was, in the Black Panthers, and kind of, with the Martin Luther King and all that kind of stuff going on. And that was all not true. That was all added to the movie. And when you take that out, there's not a lot to it. So that's something that kind of bothered me. I know it bothered a lot of people that stuff was just sort of added to the movie. And that was some of the most interesting stuff. Like I said, though, this was very well acted. I thought Oprah did a really good job. A little hard, though, to forget she's Oprah. There's certain actors that can really fall into the part with them. Not as much with her, just because you're always thinking of her from the shows and things like that. I would definitely check it out, though. It really was a well-done movie. But I just wish there was a little things, kind of some more parts that were just gone into. And the next one from Anchor Bay as well is Force of Execution with Steven Seagal and Ving Rhames and Danny Trejo. And this one was just okay. This is about like Steven Seagal's kind of like this, I guess like a kingpin, like a mob kind of kingpin, and he has these people hired to go and do things, and it's like something he does in the jail. And I was having a hard time getting into this, but has them go into the jail, and it doesn't end up going as planned. So then he ends up kind of, going after the guy that was in charge of doing that. And, it's one of those ones where there's some kind of interesting fight scenes in it and things like that, but some of it was kind of a little bit over the top with the fight scenes. I can't highly recommend this. It's just one of those ones, when it comes to these kind of movies, there's sometimes I just cannot, as hard as I try, get into the movie. And I try so hard with some of these kind of movies, and I don't know why. I just could not get into this movie in the slightest. The next one is from First Run Pictures. This is one I was really interested in seeing, and it's a documentary on Night of the Living Dead called Birth of the Living Dead. And it's basically, because, there's been a lot of kind of making of things. There was the Document of the Dead one, which kind of went into all of George Romero's movies, but mainly into Day of the Dead, on Dawn of the Dead, which is a really well done documentary. This one is basically talking about Night of the Living Dead and kind of talking about the origins and how they got this movie made. And there was some interesting stuff in this that I had no idea about, how so many of the people who were actors in the movies actually did the makeup in the movie or did things on the crew, and kind of like everybody was doing all these different jobs in it, and how low budget the movie actually was made for, and how they shot some of it, and they almost didn't think they were ever going to get the movie finished, like all that kind of stuff. When you're watching it, you would never think. And it was talking about too how this movie was pretty much what inspired this kind of zombie film, because before that it was very different type of zombie films. That was mainly what the movie was about. I was surprised though it didn't get any interviews with like the cast members like Judith O'Dea and things like that from Night of the Living Dead. But I really did like it, and they talked a little bit too about how the movie ended up getting in the public domain. But it also has an extended interview on here. It's 33 minutes with George Romero, and then it has with Bill Heinzman, the first zombie, also did Flesh Eater, and it's him going in the mall, with a bunch of zombies, for the big zombie walk in the Monroeville Mall where they filmed Dawn. And I think I've seen that video before, but from like a different angle. The next one from the same group is Happy House. The Happy House. It's in this unique kind of case. It's like one of those like environmental, recycled cases. I like this movie. This was a very quirky movie about this couple that ends up going to this bed and breakfast. And when they get there, it's this kind of old woman and her son. And, she's always making these muffins, and she's like, not telling the secret recipe to it. And she's like, they're kind of nervous about this woman, because she's like, if you break the rules, you have 3 strikes, and once you break them, what's going to happen. It's kind of one of those things where they kind of think that they're going to get killed pretty much. They want to get the hell out of there. And there's a guy there who's like searching for this butterfly. And it's basically a quirky movie about them thinking something, and could it be something else, and kind of a flip movie and things like that. I liked it. I just thought it was a silly, fun kind of... It reminded me like a lot of like an 80s movie, like one of those ones, people in an old bed and breakfast. There's been some movies like that before, but I just had a fun time with it. Now the next one from MTI is Home Invasion, which stars Haley Duff and C. Thomas Howell. It's basically about this robbery that ends up going wrong, and the woman whose house they ends up stealing from ends up killing the one guy while he's trying to rob the house. She ends up shooting him, and Haley Duff's outside is going to basically be the driver of the getaway car, and her boyfriend's the one that gets killed. And it's her, a number of months later, basically trying to get revenge on the woman who kills her husband. And it's pretty much, she's like doing all these kind of things to sabotage it. Like she's going to where she works and screwing with things with the food at this restaurant that she's opening up, kind of becomes friends with her. And it's basically, that's what it is her trying to ruin her life and you don't know, pretty much she probably wants to kill her, and that's pretty much what it is. I really liked the character actor. He was only in it for a little, like 2 or 3 scenes, but the guy who played the head chef in the restaurant, he was in like Vegas Vacation as that guy who's like at the buffet. I don't know, he's been in a bunch of stuff in like little parts and character roles, but I really like that guy. Like, I almost could see a home movie with that guy in that kitchen scene. I don't know, I like this one. I think it was made for Lifetime, but I don't know, I just thought it was kind of interesting. Next one from Lionsgate, from the After Dark Pictures line, was Ritual. And this was about a woman who's in this, basically calls her husband she hasn't seen in a number of months. They've been kind of having fights and things like that. And she calls him and is like, I need you to get here now. And the guy ends up going to the seedy motel where she is, and there's a dead guy on the ground. And it's basically about her talking about how she ended up killing the guy. And basically they end up coming to find out that the guy is in this kind of crazy cult. And it's about them like dealing with the repercussions of what they did. The cult in this movie was kind of peculiar, though. It was like just sort of guys in like really cheap masks. They kind of looked like, just like rubber masks that looked like they were from like, like I don't know, like they cost like $3 or something. Like, I don't know, like to me that was the only thing I was like, I wish they would have had a cooler mask. And they were kind of like these unexpected kind of guys to be in the cult too. That was the kind of thing I thought was sort of funny, and I thought it was okay. It was a little different, not absolutely amazing, but that's essentially what it was. The next one I just finished watching. This is from Image, and it's Voodoo Possession starring Danny Trejo. And Danny Trejo's in it for like, I don't know, he's in like scattered throughout it a little bit, but most of it's in like these flashback scenes when they're watching this stuff. I wish he was in a little bit more though, but it's about this guy who's his brother ended up going to this in Haiti, this kind of asylum to help these people, like a mental asylum, and he ended up going missing. And it's him and his girlfriend, who works for the news, kind of going there to do a story about trying to figure out where the one guy's brother is and see if they can find any more information about it. And when they end up getting there, it's pretty much them kind of talking to people there, trying to investigate it, and they end up doing this voodoo ritual, which ends up getting them kind of trapped, and they kind of have to go through their memories to try and figure out exactly what happened and how they got there. I thought this one was okay. It was all right in some parts. I just wish they would have. I would like to have seen a little bit more, like when they got to Haiti. It would be kind of cool if they did it like, like a Cannibal Holocaust, something like that. Like they get to it, you kind of see like islands and I don't know, like that kind of stuff. The movie didn't have a big feel of space. I mean, they shot it in the Linda Vista Hospital, which they shot a lot of horror movies in, but it just didn't have an element to space to it. It didn't feel very alive to it. I don't know. I'm sure if some people know what I'm talking about. It just felt kind of flat and a little bit, tripoded a lot. You know what I mean? Like locked down. That was the only thing I would say. I wish there was a little bit more to it with some of the things. And for a voodoo movie, it was okay. I mean, the one that Wes Craven did, Serpent in the Rainbow, was one of the best voodoo movies. But I think it's worth checking out, though, but not absolutely amazing. But I did like it, though. The next one from Fox is Percy Jackson and the Sea of Monsters, and this is the follow-up to the Percy Jackson films, and this is the second one. The one, from this, I kept on thinking of her in, the last Texas Chainsaw Massacre one, but it's basically about her, and, Brendan T. Jackson is in this, from Lottery Ticket and the Big Mama's House 3, but it's basically about these, the one kid who's like the son of Poseidon or Thor, son of Poseidon, and it's like kind of like all the half-bloods, all the people that are like the sons of like the sea creatures and things like that, living together in this commune, and something comes in there and screws things up, and it's basically about them trying to solve it. It's very hard to explain. I had a hell of a time figuring out what was going on in some of it. I didn't dislike it though. I liked the cast in it. The main guy, is from The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Wasn't totally my kind of film, but I think a lot of people, like younger kids, would like it more. But I had a hard time figuring out some of what was happening. Now the next one from Image as well is The Last Love, and this stars Michael Caine, and it's basically about Michael Caine. You know, his wife. He's basically living in France, and he's made no real effort to try and learn the language because his wife had died there a couple of years back, and he's kind of there, very depressed and very sad, and like not really much is going on, and he's kind of doing the same thing all the time. He ends up meeting this one girl there when he's on the bus, and it's kind of about them kind of having this friendship, which is basically getting him out of the house, getting to do different things, and about how they're pretty much helping each other. It's one of those kind of movies. I really liked it. It was interesting, too, to hear Michael Caine do an American accent, because I don't think I can't think of offhand another movie where he was playing an American character, because normally he just does his accent, but I don't think I could think of any. But I really liked it. Like, if you like Michael Caine, which I think, you know, who couldn't like Michael Caine, it was a good movie, and he's like the main star of it. He's not like in a small part or anything. Like I said, it's basically about him with his friendship and, you know, them helping each other. I really liked it, though. And the last one from Kino is a documentary called More Than Honey, and it's basically talking about, you know, how honeybees are starting to die off and how important that they are and things like that. You know, because, you know, you've heard about that kind of stuff a lot. But what I really liked about it was just some really, really cool shots of the honeybees and things like that in the hives. They talk about, too, the early days of how they kept honeybees and things like that. That stuff I thought was pretty cool. And also when they were showing the hives and these big facilities and all these bees everywhere, like that kind of stuff. I always have been secretly kind of creeped out by bees, especially when I talked about a couple updates back, Savage Bees always creeped me out of bees as a kid. I wasn't even able to walk by, like, if there was trees with bees in them, I was always freaked out and had to run by them. I was totally creeped out by them. But like I said, this is a very well done documentary on that. I thought it was pretty, you know, well put together and a lot of really cool, you know, bee sequences and things like that. So anyway, though, guys, thanks again for watching this new update, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.